All right, we're going to be building the motor mount in this step. We're going to be using some more of the wood glue. You can use regular white glue. If you're not used to using wood glue, which tends to grab quicker, it's a thicker glue, go ahead and use white glue so that you don't have a problem of getting stuck. We'll need an old spent engine casing that we're going to mark 1.5 inch from the end, the two motor mount rings, and our motor block. First things first, always dry fit. So we're going to make sure that the block slides into the end relatively easy. Okay, we got that in there without too much trouble. We've got our two rings that go on the outside. That's a little tight, but that's okay. That one doesn't want to fit, so we'll go ahead and sand it a little bit. Just take some sandpaper, either on your dowel or roll it up. You don't want to go too coarse with it, but take and just sand it on the inside all the way around. And then we'll slide it on the tube. There we go. So now we're on the tube. Now one ring is going to go on the far end, just like that. And the other ring I've already marked for 1/2 inch. Now the reason we're marking it 1/2 inch is we want this part of the tube sticking 1/2 inch out of the body tube of the gyro chaser. So when we're done, that's going to stick out the full 1/2 inch. All right. So now we know what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and slide these back towards the center. And that's our forward end. So we're going to go ahead and put the glue on this end for our motor mount. Now we want the motor block to make the engine extend at least 1/2 inch out. So I've marked 1/2 inch so I can shove the motor up that far, and that'll stop it from going the mark. I'll stop at the mark, and that means there won't be any further up, and that's going to keep me from going too far up and not being able to retrieve a motor later on. So we're going to first slide the mount ring in on this end just a little bit. Then on the other end, I'm going to apply my glue. The reason I'm doing this is that way I'm not going to have glue running through the section where the engine actually slides in. It's all going to be on this side of the tube, so I don't have issues with it later on. I'm going to use a stick to apply it with. You can use a wooden dowel. It's generally easier with a wooden dowel. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to kind of hold the engine up here. It's going to give me a guess of about where I need to put it. So we're going to go right about here with the glue. We're going to smear it around. And that looks pretty good. Now we're going to take the motor and we're going to shove it up until we hit that 1/2 inch mark. And then we're going to pull it right back out, and we're going to look for any glue on there. I don't see any glue there. There's not too much excess up here. I can hold the motor in place with my fingers and use my other finger to wipe around and smear that glue around to give me an even bead. If you can't do that, you can use the tip of an eraser or anything else and just smear that glue around the top and make sure you got an even bead all the way around the top. Now remember, and get that back out really quick. We don't want to leave that in there too long. When we let this dry, we want to let it dry straight up and down with the glue downward. We don't want the glue sticking and running inside the tube. We want the glue to run towards the nose so that it doesn't pool anywhere where it's going to block the engine. And if we lay it on its side, it's all going to pool to one side, and it's going to cause a lopsidedness on the balance of the rocket. So we're going to put it nose down and let it dry that way. Our next step, we're going to smear our glue around the bottom. Put a dab there. Go ahead and just smear it all the way around. And remember, a little bit, it'll grab fast. A lot, it'll slide a little bit better. And then we're going to push really fast all the way down. Pull it off, wipe up our excess glue. Remember that pushing down really fast is important. Now we want to come to that mark, so I'm actually going to put the glue just a little bit on the mark like this. Okay, and then I'm going to smear it around. Okay, now we're going to have to push very quickly to get to our 1/2 inch mark. So 1, 2, 3, go. And we're there, and about the time I hit there, the glue started seizing up. So that worked out pretty good. Okay, trying to make sure I got it straight. A little lopsided. That's the problem with the white glue versus the wood glue. The wood glue tends to grab a lot quicker, so you really have to watch out. Now the excess glue, I'm going to smear around and make a fillet out of it, but we want to get any glue off the top of the rings. We don't want any glue on the green part of the rings, because that's going to have to be slid into the rocket, and if we have any up there, we're going to have to sand it off. Okay, a little roll. And you can see that this ring doesn't wobble back and forth, so that means we got it on there straight. So we're going to set that off to the side to dry for a little while. Again, that's the end with the motor block, or the forward end towards the nose of the rocket. This is the tail of the rocket. So I'm pointing it downward so all the glue will run towards the nose and not where the engine goes. So we'll set that off to the side to dry, and then we'll get on to our next step. Alright, our next step, we're going to be taking the motor mount assembly and we're going to insert that into the main body tube and glue that in place. Again, dry fit first. We're going to slide that in, and we're going to be gluing it with that back motor ring right even with the butt of the tube. This is going to give us the ability to tape our engine in place and use a tape holding instead of an engine hook. We're reducing weight, not having a piece of metal there, or we can friction fit by wrapping tape around the motor. So that's nice and easy to fit. If you have a little snugness and it doesn't want to slide in, you can sand your rings a little bit, or you can sand the, sometimes there's a burr right on the edge of the tube, and you can just take your sandpaper and lightly at a slight angle sand the edge, and that'll take the burr off. Alright, so I want to tape it or glue it right at the edge like that. So to achieve that effect, I need to get glue at least that far up into the tube, just a little shy of that distance. And then I'm going to have to put glue on this ring and then be ready to wipe it off as it comes out the end. So how do we do that? We're going to use a popsicle stick or a wooden dowel. Now I've measured, so I want the glue to go from here to here at least. You can see the little marks on there. So my ring's about that wide, so I want the glue to go right in that section there. I can go a little bit wider if I want. And I'm going to mark the butt end, how far in I'm going to stick the stick. So I'm going to put my glue on, put it in that far, and then start smearing it around. I can get a second helping of glue if I need and continue smearing. And again, when it starts to dry, we're going to tip it so that the glue will run towards the nose if there's any extra. We don't want any glue running into the engine area. I could put it right side up, but then it's going to slide inside the tube while the glue sets. So we'll put it right side up, right side down, nose down, while that glue dries. So here we go. Glue on the stick first, and I'm going to go a little bit proud with this glue. So we got a nice helping of glue there, and then quickly we take it in right up to the mark, just a little shy of the mark. We're going to flip the stick over and just smear that glue around the inside. Now I can take a look inside, and it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and give it another helping of glue. Just a little bit more. And we're going to look at what we're doing, and we're going to smear that inside again. Okay, I don't want to come too shallow, because if I'm too shallow, I can't slide this in just a little bit. Now I can put glue on this end. A couple dabs. There we go. I can smear it around really, really quick. Again, I have yet to get to the glue inside. I don't want to touch that glue inside until I have everything ready to go. Alright, so now I've got my towel to wipe the excess off. I'm going to slide this in, and I can feel that I hit the glue already inside, right there to the end. Boom. And when you're wiping, pull away from you as you pull the towel towards yourself. That way you're not wiping glue onto a clean area, you're pulling glue off the rocket. Slide that up a little bit more. Okay, perfect. I love the way that sits. So I'm going to sit here and kind of hand roll it a little bit to make sure that that glue doesn't set up in one side for a few minutes while this sets. Because again, its own weight, it'll droop down in there. And then we're going to set it up like that, and we're going to let that dry fully. It won't take too long to dry. Now, while that's drying, we can go ahead and cut out our fin marking guide and get ready to set up and mark our fins. So we'll dig that out. And if that doesn't want to stand up, grab something to support it and slide it over. I actually simmed this rocket on a D engine because it is the main body tube is the size of a 24mm engine. It's going to break 1,000 feet or better. We're looking at 2,000 feet. I don't think I want to chase the helicopter that far down the road. I might purchase another one at a later date and do that, but I'm going to stick to the traditional build right here. If you don't have a rocket sim program, I do highly suggest getting one. They're very, very great for helping you simulate flights on a rocket. They'll help you find out if you need to add a little nose weight to your rocket or not because of stability issues. So they have RockSim with Apogee components. You have OpenRocket as free software online. Doesn't do all the things that RockSims do, but go with what you can afford, obviously. RockSim is the better of the two. So we're going to cut out our template for our fin guide. Remember, sharp hobby knives don't cut you, they cut the paper. And you shouldn't have to force your knife. It should just go through like butter. If you're trying to force your knife to cut, it's a dull knife and you need to get a new one. There we go. And our next cut. Trim that one edge up a little bit. When I teach classes, I teach X-Acto knife safety, and basically your knife never leaves over the cutting mat when it's uncovered. Okay, it's trimmed. Okay, let's put our shield back on. Now we take our marking guide and we're going to take a piece of Scotch tape and we're going to put tape on the non-grade area. The overlap area is where we overlap at. Now we can put our tape on here, and I have the Estes fin guide. I use it to apply my fins, but this just helps me make sure I have my fins straight. So we're going to pull that tight, and then we're going to tape it in place. And we don't have an engine hook, so we don't have to worry about how we align this up. I always tell people, if you have an engine hook, make sure you're aligning out of the way of the launch lug and out of the way of the fins. Pick somewhere between to have your engine hook if it doesn't tell you already where to put it. So for the fins, I'm going to do one mark on the top. For the launch lug, so I know that it's the launch lug, I'm going to mark the top and the bottom. We'll mark the top for a fin, and then we'll mark a top for a fin. Something else I do with all my rockets when I get them is I take all the instructions and all the paper and I photocopy it or scan it into my computer as a PDF file. So now I always have the fin template on hand. It's just a matter of going into the computer and printing it out. For example, I took a propeller and the fin, one propeller blade and one fin blade, traced it out and scanned it into the computer. So now I have this template in the computer forever. So if I need to at a later date make a fin, I can do it. All I have to do is go get my material and boom, I'm ready to do it. Okay, next we need our angle iron. So we'll take our angle iron, we're going to put the rocket tube in there. We're going to line up our marks. Remember the one with the 2 marks? That's our launch lug. So I'm going to actually draw that line pretty high and proud so that we know that that's the launch lug. Remember, you want to use pencil for marking on your rocket. And the fins, I'm just going to draw them not nearly as far up the tube as I did the other one. And we're going to go right to our mark again. There we go. And then we'll go to our next mark. And there we go there. Now we won't be applying the fins yet. We still have to trim them out and get them set up, so we'll be showing that in another video. But we'll set this back up to dry. Let that sit and dry overnight, and then we'll be ready to start our next step. Alright, now we're going to mount our Kevlar thread into our body tube. Now, we're anchoring it alongside one of the fins. So what we have to do is drill a hole in the body tube above our motor mount. Remember, we've got the motor mount in there, so if we drill too far down, we won't be able to get through. So we want to drill above our motor mount. And how do we make sure we do that? Well, we can use our measuring stick that we used from when we put the rocket in. We know about there where the motor mount assembly is, just by that. We can turn around and take a longer stick, insert it in the bottom of the tube, and then mark the stick, and then that'll help us mark the tube as to the location where we need to drill above. And again, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting the shock cord into this tube, and it's going to go through the tube up to the let's see, I'm trying to mark it here. There we go. And this way we're getting our shock cord retention. We don't have anything that's going to interfere with the deployment of the rotor blades for the so that works out pretty good. Alright, you can use your hobby knife to drill your hole, or you can use a Dremel if you happen to have a Dremel high speed. And we're going to go right above there. There's our hole. Now we need to sand that hole off lightly. Because we won't get a chance to sand it off after the thread's in there. Now normally when I drill a hole, I immediately turn around and coat it with CA glue. This time I'm not going to, because I'm going to be using CA glue to adhere the shock cord into place. So first of all, I need to trim off the end. I've got a fuzzy end here, so I don't want that. So we'll trim that off. And then we'll feed it in through our hole. Hopefully I have made the hole big enough. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit wider. And again, a little bit of sanding on it to smooth that out. Nice and smooth. And we'll feed our thread in. There we go. We'll just keep feeding it in. See it come out the bottom here. There we go. Alright, now we're going to lay it so it's even with the tail of the rocket. So I'm going to trim off this little bit of excess we got here. Got some fray on the end, so I want to trim that off. And then we're going to draw it until it lays right where we want it. Right there. I'm a little shy. Okay, so now I need to super glue this in place. We'll use our CA glue. We're going to go ahead and grab our plastic wrap, because I can use the plastic wrap to push down on the Kevlar string and not glue my finger in place. So we're going to try and lay it right where we want it. I can also use the tips of the tools I have. And then we're going to give her a little paint of CA glue. Seems my nozzle's clogged here. There we go. Again, by having this in place, we're not going to get drips on our mat or on our fingers and get glue dryer work. So real quick. And then we'll go ahead and push it in place. And then I can grab my accelerator. Give it a dab of accelerator. And she is in place. Alright, so now we'll wipe off our excess. Make sure it's clean. Give it a little tug here. Looks pretty good. So now I can take and put a little bit more CA glue right up here on the tip. And then wipe off the excess, and I've sealed my hole, the rough edges on the hole, so now I don't have to worry about that becoming a fray issue later on. Again, I always love to seal all my ends. Okay, and the other thing I have to do is I'm going to seal the end here with CA glue. Again, this is because the motor's put in and out of this repeatedly. I don't want it to start deteriorating. Quickly wipe the excess out. We'll let that dry for a little bit, and then we'll put our shot cord through the body again, and we'll do the top the same way. We want to reinforce this top with a little bit of CA glue so that we don't have issues of the top starting to fray. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and CA glue the top and wipe the excess off out of that, and we'll get on to the next step.